very frustrating. Almost as frustrating as being asked about it.
Rihanna. Guess who up in this?
This is a video I have been wanting to make for a very long time now, and the time is finally here because I'm about 90% sure we're not getting any new music, so why not? So people gather around, grab a snack, a drink. I hope you brought some friends, because this is going to be a fun time. Now, I'm not from the island, but I am a Naija gal, so I put on some Ankara print to get myself in the right mood for this. We're going to be going all the way back to the year 2003. Rihanna was just a teenage girl on the small island of Barbados, and from a very young age, she had a huge passion for music and fashion. At that time, she auditioned for American record producer Evan Rogers, and she impressed him enough that he wanted to work with her to create her very first demo. She was traveling constantly from Barbados to America to create the demo during her school holidays, and after sending the demo to many record labels, she finally caught the eye of Def Jam Recordings. She specifically grabbed the attention of the new CEO of the company at the time, Jay-Z. I don't really think I need to give a lengthy background of Jay-Z, huge rapper from New York that blew up in the 90s, and by the 2000s he was already making waves in business from fashion to now music. We already know this information. Rihanna auditioned for Jay-Z and music mogul L.A. Reid with Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You, which was a bold choice on her part. She also performed a rough cut of her to-be debut single later on, Pon de Replay. Jay-Z was a little skeptical to sign her because he thought Pon de Replay was way too big of a track for her, but he was super impressed by her unique vocal tone and overall laid-back demeanor, so he signed her to the label in early 2005 for a 6-album deal. Rihanna was only 17 at the time, and she was still enrolled in high school, but the second she signed that contract, she dropped out without hesitation. I'm sure her classmates thought she was crazy, but she said, "F it. We ball." I always find it really fascinating when artists' come-up stories are always, "Oh, we packed our bags and moved across the country so I could do this." And I'm like, your parents believed in you enough that they actually dropped everything and left everything that they know? We don't live in the same world. Her first era begins with Music of the Sun. After signing with Def Jam, she flew to New York to live with Evan and his wife for a little bit, and they both quickly got to work on her album. Evan was a popular producer at the time, having created hits for Christina Aguilera, Kelly Clarkson, and Jessica Simpson, so he had an ear for creating catchy pop hits. She worked with various producers and songwriters, including Evan, to create the sound for the album that was very inspired from her Caribbean island roots. Later that summer, Rihanna releases her debut single, Pon de Replay. The music video comes out and it goes #2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and top 5 in many countries, making it a very successful debut. The video has Rihanna and her friends at a club where the vibe is kind of dead and everyone is bored, so Rihanna tells the DJ to turn up the music like the song says, and the energy picks up while she dances on a platform. It features typical Caribbean dance moves with her whining and waist tick-tocking, really bringing forward her culture in it, and introduces to the world that she's the new girl from the island on the scene. I do love this music video, but why would she be 17 at the club? I'm just confused. Does she not have homework or a project? Maybe an appropriate house party to attend? From the beginning of that debut single, comparisons between her and Beyonce began, with Pon de Replay being compared to Beyonce's Baby Boy for their similar dancehall and reggae sounding production. I do find this interesting considering Rihanna was actually from the island, but we move. In the early years of Rihanna's career, she was constantly being pitted against Beyonce, with them both being young black women in the industry, and Rihanna was the new girl also trying to take up that space. God forbid there's 2 successful black women in the same space. We can't have that. These comparisons would fire up so much that rumors of an affair between Rihanna and Jay-Z spread everywhere. And it was around the time that Beyonce and Jay-Z had begun their public relationship, which is a conversation within of itself for their age gap, but we'll deal with that another day. Rihanna would constantly be asked in interviews about her relationship with Jay-Z, and she would always say that they were professional and that she looked up to him. He was practically uncle to her, and everyone was just being weird. With Rihanna being a new artist, she didn't have a huge wardrobe budget, so her style was focused on a mid-2000s hip-hop style, with her rocking baggy jeans and a midriff top in the Pon de Replay music video. This would be her overall style the entire era, mostly having girly touches of glitter crop tops, bright colors with laid-back looks of baggy jeans, jeans worn low with the top of her underwear showing, lots of sneakers, and sometimes cropped hoodies as it was a popular look at the time. And honestly, I think a lot of these looks would still eat today. This style will never get old. She was 17 at the time, and her style was more sexy than the average teen pop star with the amount of skin she showed, but because she had that cool girl vibe to her, it fit her pretty well. She also wasn't going out of her way trying to be sexy or overly scandalous, so the people really had no problem with it. She was attending lots of award shows and events during this era with her red carpet looks, having more girly pieces of skirts and blazer tops. Her first mass audience on a global scale was the 2005 MTV Awards pre-show. She did Pon de Replay while wearing colorful carnival clothing, and the set was filled with flags of Barbados, further showcasing her Caribbean culture. Her performances for the era were decent for a new artist, but she hadn't had any career-defining moments yet. The era was pretty short, with it only having 2 singles, Pon de Replay and If It's Loving That You Want. The video for If It's Loving That You Want had a different direction from before, with it having a more tropical vibe as it's set on a beach, and Rihanna's wearing more beachy looks like flowy skirts and bikini tops, really giving that island vibe. The single didn't do as well as Pon de Replay, but it was still a moderate success, going top 40 in the US and top 20 in the UK. 2 weeks later, the album drops, and it was a moderate success, debuting at number 10 and selling 69,000 copies. But internationally, it was still relatively unknown. Considering it was her debut, the numbers weren't great, but they weren't terrible either. She just needed some time to grow. The album was very dancehall inspired, as we could see from the singles. And there was also some R&B elements on some of the slower pace ballads. But overall, it was aiming to exude a fun, dancey vibe through drum beats and bright production. Critics' feelings for the album were kind of all over the place, to be honest, with some really liking it for its dancehall sounds and others thinking that it was lyrically weak, and her vocals were too. Now, me personally, I really like this album. I play There's a Thug in My Life a little too often that you would think to yourself, Aishah, do we need to talk? Overall, the era was about introducing Rihanna to the world as an island girl to really separate her from her peers, but she still hadn't found her signature sound or vocal style yet. But the Caribbean sounds of this album would always find its way in her future albums because she would never leave it behind. By 2006, only 1 year into her career, she's already on to the next era, A Girl Like Me. This era would mark Rihanna's road to a more traditional pop sound compared to her debut. While it did still have a heavy focus on those dancehall sounds from before, there was also way more ballads and more upbeat dance pop sounds on the record. This era would kick off with the lead single SOS. Rihanna steers away from the island sounds for a pure pop R&B track made for dancing. It looks way more polished, and it's clear that the budget and production value was a lot higher on this one. She's going for a bit of a girlier, sexier image in the choreography and the outfits, specifically her pink dress and curly mohawk, showing this era was way different than Music of the Sun. There wasn't a crazy amount of time between her first 2 albums, with them both being released 8 months from each other. This was probably due to Rihanna turning freshly 18 by 2006 and her team wanting her image to be more mature and sexy to give her a better chance at being a global star. It wasn't just her music that was becoming more refined, her style was also starting to shift in this era. She completely ditched the girl next door look for expensive, shiny mini dresses and high heels with either boned straight hair or huge curls. You can really see the transition to full-blown R&B starlet with these looks, and she was going for a more toned down color scheme this time around. While her style was becoming more sexy, she wasn't really wearing anything to make her stand out compared to other R&B girlies. So obviously critics took note of this and would compare her new style to who? That's right. This was just adding even more fuel to pitting them against each other, and Rihanna hated it. She was tired. And the fact that everyone spent so much time comparing them instead of trying to get them on a song together is the biggest crime here, and I will never forgive their teams for that. She grew pretty frustrated with her label, as it was clear that they were trying to get her to follow the same path as Beyonce in terms of imagery and even like visuals for her singles. And Rihanna hated this because her team wasn't even remotely trying to figure out who she she was as an individual. They wanted to go full international takeover. SOS was a huge commercial success, going #1 in the US, becoming her first #1 single, and it topped the charts in Europe and Australia. There was also a bigger budget, which meant bigger promo. She was doing video campaigns for Nike and the lingerie brand Agent Provocateur. Fun fact, SOS was actually supposed to go to Christina Milian for her album So Amazing, but she turned it down, and then it went to Rihanna, which was clearly a smart choice for Rihanna. It was pretty often that some of Rihanna's biggest hits were initially meant for other artists, but Rihanna would take them and make them completely her own. They wasted no time putting out the album. It drops 2 months after the single, and it sells double the amount of Music of the Sun first week, successfully beating that terrible sophomore slump curse. She goes straight into promo on the Ellen DeGeneres show, then to Canada for the Much Music Video Awards, Europe for the EMAs. I also have to include this video. It is literally one of the funniest videos I have ever seen on the internet. It tickles me every time. Like, why did she do that? She even made a cameo in Bring It On All or Nothing and performed Pon de Replay in the movie, with it being featured on the soundtrack. I think people collectively agree that this movie was terrible.
If anyone deserves to be on TV, it's me. Look at them. They're so ghetto.
But it was very influential to my teen years. Rise up if you were Bring It On stan. She was officially the newest it girl of 2006, and she was being recognized absolutely everywhere. A month later, we get Unfaithful as the next single, which was a slower song from the upbeat sounds of SOS. The song was actually written by label mate Neo, who was also having a breakout year at that time. The music video was a lot more laid back to match the tone of the song, just Rihanna singing, and it has a storyline portraying the lyrics in the song having her cheat on her boyfriend with another man. The song did pretty well, going top 10, making it her 3rd top 10, which is absolutely insane considering this was only her 2nd album. Rihanna's star power just kept growing and growing. Not even a full year into her career, she's headlining her first tour, Rihanna Live in Concert. So let's get into this tour, shall we? The overall vibe of this tour was polished R&B princess with a hint of, I guess, business casual. I'm really crying at these. They did not know how to style my good sis for this tour. The looks consisted of button-up blouses with sparkly shorts, sequin hats, and vinyl gloves. Gloves would low-key become her go-to accessory for a little minute. I think the most interesting aspect of these tour looks are her hairstyles. She constantly switched it up from bone straight with bangs to beach waves and tight curls. By that fall, she was opening up for the Pussycat Dolls on their PCD World Tour in Europe, Rock the Block with Jay-Z and Neo, and the Monkey Business Tour with the Black Eyed Peas. She was everywhere. She was even recording songs for advertising commercials too. While she was now getting national and an even international push, audiences still didn't have a good grasp on who she was as a person, and there was still a really big disconnect and fans falling in love with Rihanna. She was still pretty reserved during this era, only having been out of Barbados for a little over a year, so she was still getting acclimated to the culture of the US. The typical standard of pop stars, and by pop stars I mean female pop stars, was to always remain humble and pretty much approachable at all times. And because she didn't have an overly bubbly or animated personality in interviews and performances, she was being perceived as stuck up by the general public, which I never really understood. Like, where she's from, in a lot of countries outside of Western culture, you don't do too much, especially out in public, as a sign of respect. She really felt misunderstood during this time, considering she'd only ever been nice and polite to literally everyone she had met. But the industry would need to buckle up, because nice girl Rihanna would end here and a new form of Rihanna would start to come and never look back. The last 2 singles of the era were We Ride and Break It Off. We Ride was chosen as a 3rd single after seeing on iTunes that it was the most downloaded song on the album after the previous singles, so she decided to choose it as the next one since fans clearly loved it. The music video was directed by Anthony Mandler, who also directed the Unfaithful music video, another simple one with a storyline portraying the lyrics. It didn't do great chart-wise, but Break It Off did reach the top 10, so good for her. There was a clear path of what Rihanna was becoming in this era, which was more on the R&B starlet side rather than like full-blown pop star, as there still wasn't any iconic music videos, performances, or any signature outfits, really. While the era was clearly more successful than Music of the Sun, it still wasn't the smash album the label was looking for, to where it was the true moment of 2006 where it really stuck to the people. Def Jam was very close to dropping her from the label, not once, not twice, but 4 times. They hated her. It's kind of funny knowing what would come in the next year, but I'm getting ahead of myself. She then attended the 2007 Grammys wearing a green dress similar to hers in the SOS video, but her hair was a lot different. She rocked a chopped long bob, kind of giving a tease to the next era, Good Girl Gone Bad. Rihanna was done being the nice island girl trying to make her name for herself. She was now in her grown woman era of being sexy and bold, and the very iconic bad gal RiRi persona was born here. No more Beyonce comparisons too. She was beginning to become her own kind of artist with her own branding and sound different from anyone else. Everything about this era was stepped up times 100 and was unlike anything she had done before. It begins with the lead single Umbrella, and the music video debuted 2 months later on the iTunes store. This video was her official launch into being a full-fledged sex symbol, super risque. It literally has her being nude and covered in silver paint. The budget was a lot higher with it having intricate outfits and multiple settings, sharper choreo. But I'm not gonna lie, the CGI is questionable even for 2007, but we're just gonna ignore that. It was without a doubt her most boundary-pushing video yet with its futuristic elements. The song actually wasn't intended for Rihanna. It was originally written for Britney Spears in mind for her album Blackout, but there were way too many songs on her album, so she ended up giving it away, and then it went to Mary J. Blige, and she also didn't want it for some reason. Y'all don't like hits? L.A. Reid then caught the song and thought it was perfect for Rihanna, and the rest is history. The video was wildly popular, debuting at 10 on MTV's TRL, later going #1 for 15 days, which was the longest #1 video of 2007. This was her first hit on a mega successful level that fully took over the globe, and it would become her first of many career-defining songs, which was also the intention of this album too. They completely wanted to shake shit up here. She worked with the same team from her previous album, but this time around, she really set out to make a pop-driven record made to sell millions.
Got a little rebellious, I got a little attitude, and the song of the album is really, really edgy, and I felt like the title matched my personality now.
By 2007, a lot of R&B music was transitioning from traditional ballad love songs to a more upbeat club-driven sound, made to get you dancing and backing it up on that floor. Huge albums like Goodies by Ciara, B-Day by Beyonce, and The Emancipation of Mimi had this braggadocious club flavor to it, and Rihanna wanted a piece of that pie. So she brought in hip-hop and R&B hit makers Timbaland and Tricky Stewart to also produce the album, and together they made the sound that would take Rihanna from R&B diva to pop sex icon with rich club dance beats and heavy R&B production. You can clearly hear those elements on this record with its sexually charged lyrics. But the album also had mid-tempo love songs very reminiscent of her first 2 albums. In the past, people didn't really have a good grasp on who Rihanna was as an artist, which is why it was so easy to be able to compare her to other people. But with this album, she created a sound that was completely unique to her, and it gave her a clear identity in the music industry now. So good for her. This was the Rihanna album to make her the it girl of the industry. It had her highest first week sales yet. It went on to sell 10 million copies worldwide, and it became one of the best-selling albums of 2007. This was her most successful album by far. Good Girl Gone Bad became the pinnacle of moving from a good girl image to sex icon, which was for sure perfected by Britney Spears, but it became the standard for the next generation of pop artists thanks to Rihanna. Yes, I'm back on my laptop cam. I also need to include Janet Jackson in this conversation, who really paved the way for this transition within pop music with her 4-album masterpiece run, especially the Velvet Rope that became the blueprint for good girl to sex icon. And we will not leave my good sis out of this conversation. We love Janet. And with that, everything she wore in this era was grown times 10 with a bit of a dark tone to it. She was playing around with more edgy looks by constantly changing her style from jet black to a blunt bob, and even experimenting with different colors by putting highlights in her hair. She was also starting to make a footing in the fashion industry too, with her being styled in more high-end attire to red carpet events, and even getting invited to her first Met Gala. With her sexier image, her album doing really well, people are now starting to really pay attention to her social and her dating life. Because we all know around this time, she started hanging out with other up-and-coming R&B sensation Chris Brown. They met back in 2004 before and would often be linked to each other as they ran in the same circles and going to the same events. So by 2007, there were lots of rumors about them dating, and she would constantly be asked about it, but she would always shut it down in interviews. They would even collaborate a few times, like on the Umbrella remix that Chris was featured on.
Girl, I'm asking to be my queen, a vision on a magazine. That's when I'll be there. It's something we both share.
But it wasn't until 2008 that they became an official couple, going to parties and red carpet events together. They were Hollywood's it urban couple. I really hated the fact that the news would always refer to black spaces as urban. Like, why was that a thing? The second single was Shut Up and Drive, also honing in on Rihanna as a sex icon with the provocative outfits, but we also saw another side to her, which was being domineering and very confident. And I absolutely love her jacket in this video. I wanted one just like it when I was 7. Keep in mind, the girl was still crazy young. She was only 19 at this time, and she was still in the beginning stages of her career. Like, okay, overachiever. We also got Hate That I Love You as a third single, which she collabed and wrote with label mate Neo, who really helped her with her vocal tone and refining her sound during the recording of the album. This would be the start to her many collabs during the year, as she would be the go-to for some of the most memorable hip-hop hooks of the 2000s. She was featured on Run This Town with Jay-Z and also Live Your Life by T.I. And normally I can pinpoint which songs I actively like better, but I'm so sorry. Both of these are just immaculate. I listen to them weekly. What made her feature so captivating was her instantly recognizable tone, like no one sounded like her. So because of that, practically every feature she did would become an instant hit. Now the next single, Don't Stop the Music, was another example of this, and it was her first video to debut on YouTube through Vivo. It sampled Michael Jackson's Wanna Be Starting Something, but what she did with this song is so fun. It's nearly impossible to not bust out some choreo while listening to it. I absolutely love it. It is a top 10 Rihanna song to me. I also especially love this song because the title would become kind of a running joke on Twitter in terms of her career after 2016, but we'll get there later. Right after the single release, she goes on her Good Girl Gone Bad tour, and this one was sponsored by Absolute Vodka, which was pretty fitting for her new bad girl party image. While the last tour had a more toned down intimate setting, this tour was pulling out all the stops to make it even bigger. She had an MSN Music special broadcast of the show watched by millions. The stage was elaborate with a large set of stairs, huge LED screens all around the stage. We're talking pyrotechnics and a million stage props. This was unlike anything she had done before. The costumes were insane for this tour. It was nothing but provocative leather and the first act of the tour had more of a dominatrix vibe with her leather cutout costume, and then she has on a sleek dress and leather gloves for Good Girl Gone Bad. The entire tour was honing in on her mature image heavy, with her holding whips in the Sell Me Candy choreo. I really love her silver romper on this tour. It's practically blinding me from how shiny it is. Like, damn, we can see you. And she sings Umbrella as the encore. Ugh, it's just so perfect to me. 10 out of 10. While the album and tour were hugely successful and a new career high for her, everything wasn't as glamorous and as amazing as it seemed to be. Rihanna had huge financial issues during the year of 2007, and it was because her accountant was being very weird when it came to managing her funds, and he kind of kept a large chunk of her income as a profit. Her net worth somehow went from 11 million to 2 in a span of a year, and it almost caused her to go bankrupt, but it's okay. She would get her lick back in a very hilarious way 8 years later. Rehab was the last single of the era, very tame compared to her other videos, except that she had Justin Timberlake as her love interest. His girlfriend at the time, Jessica Biel, was actually pretty upset after seeing the video because their chemistry on screen was so apparent. And I don't blame her. Rihanna can most definitely take anyone's man, but crying over Justin Timberlake is a choice. This was now her longest running era because the next year she released Good Girl Gone Bad Reloaded, and this was technically a deluxe, but it was also a new version of the era because she debuted her very iconic bold pixie haircut, and this was turning to a more darker, edgier version of Rihanna. She started wearing high-end looks not just to red carpet events, but even on her casual daily outings. She was low-key climbing the ladder for becoming a fashion it girl when she went to her second Met Gala and attending Paris Fashion Week. With this new era, we got 3 singles: Take a Bow, If I Never See Your Face Again, and Disturbia. I have personal beef with Take A Bow because Glee Season 1 Episode 4 made damn sure I would never listen to it again.
Trying to apologize, you're so ugly when you cry.
I was also in middle school choir, and anytime we had to do like an audition for a solo, this girl Sarah, her go-to singing audition song was Take A Bow, and I hated it. Sarah, if I catch you, count your days. And unfortunately, now we do have to talk about the night of the 2009 Grammys. That night, Rihanna and Chris were supposed to make appearances, and Rihanna was even supposed to perform, but she canceled last minute due to an altercation between her and Chris. And as we already know, it was reported that Chris had physically assaulted Rihanna very badly during a heated argument that they had. This made worldwide news, and Chris did end up being charged for it, but he never did any serious jail time, and it did affect his career for a short period of time, but it wasn't enough to stop him from being successful. Unfortunately. This was obviously very heartbreaking and traumatic for Rihanna, and she tried to distance herself from it as best as she could by not commenting on it for a pretty long time and just going on business as usual. So she would take the experience of that night and the relationship as a bridge to her next era, rated R. You know me, I love a good outfit change just to liven things up. This era was a very drastic shift from anything she had ever done before. Everything here was to give a more darker, angrier version of Rihanna, which was for sure brought on by her relationship with Chris Brown. Everything she wore in this era was edgy, punk, and provocative. She shaved the sides of her hair and bleached it blonde to rock all kinds of hairstyles. The word hair and Rihanna were synonymous at this point. She never wore the same do twice. We got way more avant-garde pieces to red carpets and performances rather than the typical sexy pop star look, so lots of shoulder pads and unconventional materials. And if she liked it, then I love it. She was experimenting with her fashion at a very high level here, and she pretty much just wore anything she wanted at this point. The era starts off with a message on her website saying the wait is over with a picture of a metal R, and after that, the first single Russian Roulette dropped, which premiered on BBC Radio 1. The video concept was way darker than anything before, including the Disturbia music video. Rihanna always had some kind of storytelling element in her videos, so this one was no different. It opens with Rihanna lying on the floor of a gas chamber, and she's then surrounded by men in uniforms trying to get information from her. Jesse Williams is also in the video as her love interest, and they have a gun at the table taking turns holding it to their heads. It's super dark. There's lots of action scenes with speeding cars, and she's run over leading her lover to shooting himself. This was way darker than anything she had done before, and reactions to it were pretty split, with people either really liking it or thinking it was just way too much. While critics loved the song for its songwriting and Rihanna's clear artistic growth, fans weren't super down with the darkness of the song and the even darker music video, but the single did pretty well, peaking at 9, so it was a risk well taken. November 2009, Rihanna gave an exclusive interview with Diane Sawyer discussing the night Chris Brown assaulted her, how she had been mentally since then, and the dynamics of their toxic relationship. She showed an incredible amount of maturity and composure during that interview, considering how traumatic and emotional the whole thing was, and keep in mind, Rihanna was only 21 at this time. She was incredibly articulate in describing her emotions during that time period and explaining how this situation really just messes with your brain, and a lot of her fans and women around the world really resonated with her statements. I remember watching this interview in real time, and looking back on it, I'm actually really glad that she waited a specific amount of time before speaking on it so she could do it on her terms without being hounded constantly by everyone. After this, there were 2 more singles before the album release, Hard and Wait Your Turn. And I need to take a moment to talk about Hard. I love this song. When I say I love this song, I mean I love this song. I need it injected into my veins.
They can say whatever, I'ma do whatever, no pain is forever, yep, you know this.
It literally has everything I look for in a song, which is amazing production, very fun lyrics to sing.
Ride this beat like a pony.
I could go without the feature here, but that's just me. I would say this is her first I'm a Bad Bitch anthem song because you can't listen to it and think you're not that girl. With every song release, she was getting more confident, even more braggadocious, and she was changing up her sound to really give an element of surprise when it came to her artistry. You could not catch her. A week later, the album is out, and it was a complete 180 from the dance pop party girl we came to know and introduced a angrier, vulnerable Rihanna. She worked with different songwriters and producers for this album, letting go of her go-to Evan Rogers, but keeping The Dream and Tricky Stewart from Good Girl Gone Bad. But this time around, she worked super closely with Neo, who really helped with refining the sound for this album, along with will.i.am and Justin Timberlake. This album relied more on up-tempo ballads with rock and R&B influences. I have mixed feelings when it comes to this album because it's maybe my fourth favorite from her, but some of my all-time top 10 favorite Rihanna songs are on this album, like Rockstar. And how can I forget about the masterpiece ballad Cold Case Love? Oh, it's just so good, guys. Critics appreciated the album for its musical direction, but fans didn't really like it all that much, with the sales compared to Good Girl Gone Bad being a lot lower. I don't know, it's kind of hard to pit these albums against each other since Good Girl Gone Bad was such a grand smash that anything she did after that would have just been next to impossible to match, really. The first major performance for this era was the 2009 American Music Awards, where she performed Wait Your Turn, and it has this sci-fi theme going on. She's wearing her craziest outfit on stage with a skin-tight white catsuit with revealing cutout lines and spiked shoulder pads. And she wouldn't be Rihanna without having some kind of accessory. She rocked white studded cuffs and a barbed wire bracelet traveling up her arm. One thing about us Africans and Caribbeans, we love to stack up. She also does hard, and there's lasers shooting everywhere, even from her spiked shoulder pads. It was insane. 2 months later, the fourth single of the album, Rude Boy, was released, and it ended up being her most successful single of the entire era. It goes back to her reggae and dancehall roots, but has a more clubby vibe to it that makes it so infectious. The video was super out there with the colorful edits and her Caribbean dancing and outfits, which was a different speed from the dark tones of the album. The song was mega successful, topping the charts globally, and it pushed Rihanna's sex icon image even further with the lyrics. This was the Rihanna song of all Rihanna songs. It didn't matter how old you were bumping this every day. Even though we had no business listening to this song as children, this was a core childhood memory. After this, she's on tour again for the Last Girl on Earth tour. Every tour kept getting even bigger, but this was her biggest tour yet. With 4 legs and 67 shows, this was her longest tour ever. It was more theatrical than ever. There was a futuristic apocalypse theme for the show with 5 acts. Act 1 started with a montage video of Rihanna in a spaceship coming down to Earth, and she comes out on this long black gown that lights up on a moving platform, and she sings Russian roulette. For Hard, she has men in military outfits, and she wears a sparkly bodysuit with shoulder pads and does militant-like choreo. Disturbia had these zombie-like robots walking all across the stage. The theatrics were just insane. How was this real? Act 2, she has on a tight latex bodysuit and a cape for Rockstar, and even plays a guitar on stage. She had so many cool costumes for this tour. Act 3, she wore this asymmetrical deep V-cut bodysuit with a silver ruffle and draped silhouette. This tour was even more sexed up than the last. She had a BDSM segment of the show, and if you were a kid and came to this with your parent, please tell me how that was. I need a good laugh. For Act 4, she pops out in a sexy white Latisse outfit for Don't Stop the Music, which is my absolute favorite fit of the show. There's dancing, the energy is high. There's a video segment where she's being operated on, and she comes out in bra cups held together by only suspenders and biker shorts, which is absolutely insane. One wrong move and the show's over. She wears this crazy white and black outfit with huge circular shoulder pads and layered textured materials for umbrella. Absolutely iconic. After this, there were 2 more singles, Rockstar and Te Amo, and they didn't perform well in the US, but Te Amo did pretty well in Europe. Towards the end of the era, by like mid-2010, she ended up dyeing her hair red, which was kind of a signal to the Loud era, which we'll talk about in a minute. Bright hair colors were the thing to do as a pop star in 2010. Some of the other girlies that you automatically think of when it comes to this is Katy Perry, Nicki Minaj, and Lady Gaga. But what made Rihanna uniquely stand out was that she used her new hair color as also a new form of herself. She was leaving behind the dark tones from the beginning of this era and leading with more lighter, happier, freer vibes, and the features that she was on around this time definitely gave that vibe. She was part of some of the greatest pop and rap hits at the very start of this decade. She did All of the Lights with Kanye and Fly with Nicki Minaj. And I'm gonna say it, we still haven't gotten a collab between the Holy Trinity, but rather just different combinations of them, and I'm still heated about it. But the biggest collab from this period was Love the Way You Lie with Eminem, and the music video had Megan Fox and Dominic Monaghan, which showed an abusive relationship, and everyone took it as her kind of reclaiming her strength from her relationship with Chris Brown. This era was very short-lived compared to her previous ones, with it only lasting around 7 months, because by that fall she was already on to the next one, Loud. I want you all to keep in mind that Rihanna was only 5 years into her career and already 4 albums in. That's not normal. Loud is remembered as an era that turned Rihanna into a main pop girl, and not only was she the blueprint for what direction pop was entering in the early 2010s, she was pop music in the early 2010s. Everything about this era was bright, colorful, and in your face. She wore bright red hair, which was the glue for the branding of this era. You saw that damn red hair everywhere. Outfit-wise, she was wearing lots of pinup inspired outfits, casual wear on daily outings. She started working with more renowned fashion designers and stylists who made her red carpet looks way more refined and elegant. She had been making her footing in the fashion industry for a couple of years now, but this was the first time that she was making serious noise when she landed her first Vogue cover. Recording for this album went on right after Rated R, so you could kind of look at them as day and night since they were literally created back to back. I know she was tired. First single of this era was Only Girl in the World, and this single showed that we were getting that upbeat, carefree Rihanna that we hadn't seen in almost 2 years. The music video matched the vibe of the song with her in a pink desert. There's big balloons in different colors. She's wearing super girly outfits like the floral miniskirt look and the white bra and shorts fit. This video showed a completely different Rihanna than we had seen her in the past. We've seen her on a beach dancing, in very dark situations with her lover, partying at the club, but this time she's just frolicking around on a mountaintop like those medication ads you see on TV. I can't be the only one who sees it. It's probably the simplest video we've seen from her, and yet it still feels so euphoric and just fun. These were also the vibes for the album. It was a complete contrast from Rated R and really anything from before. She went for a straight pop record with hip-hop influences and reggae tones, with each song made to be a hit. She had features from some of the upcoming rappers in the game that would go on to dominate in the next decade. The album had this cool factor that the other ones just didn't have. It really sold on the laid-back party girl essence. Next single is What's My Name with Drake, which was their first collab together. And this song was huge. You had one of the biggest stars on the planet and the rising rapper making huge waves coming together on this masterpiece. It really was a time to be alive. Rihanna for sure had hits in the past, but nothing compared to the monster that was this song. It goes straight to #1 on the charts, leading to Only Girl in the World going #1 2 weeks later, which is practically unheard of. Like, who does that? Rihanna was at the top of her game. She had officially been topping the charts for 5 years straight now, and each album was getting more successful than the last. The album comes out and it beats her first week's sales again, and later sells 8 million copies, becoming the 5th best-selling digital album of all time. Her albums were now consistently performing at a very high level. She was unstoppable. She wasn't just one of the biggest stars in America. She was now one of the most famous international stars on the planet. This era makes a splash with the release of the 4th single, S&M, and it was incredibly controversial for its sexual lyrics and even more sexual music video. Rihanna had been giving a sexy image for years now, but this was on a completely different level, and the reception to the song and video was widely negative. The video got banned in 11 countries, and it was age restricted on YouTube, which at the time, YouTube was the main platform for music videos to be watched, and this was also during a time period where people actually watched music videos. I honestly think it was a bit much how badly people were bothered by it. It did not warrant all of this commotion, to be quite frank. It did not stop there. World famous photographer David LaChapelle sued her for copyright infringement as he thought the video stole his concepts and imagery without crediting him, which they later settled in court. Even though this was bad press, the song did amazing on the charts, and Rihanna decided to use all of this in her favor and play along with it. So she teamed up with the only other superstar that made headlines for years with her bad controversies, Britney Spears, on the S&M remix. While I do love both of these songs, I love the remix so much better.
Shut me up,
Ooh, Britney was real nasty on this song. She's doing all kinds of performances after this. She performed at the Brits and at the finale of American Idol. But the biggest one that would become a very iconic Rihanna moment was the Billboard Music Awards in Vegas. She did S&M wearing an all-white bodysuit and knee-high boots and dances with a chain. There's poles on the stage. Her male dancers are touching all up on her. It was a lot. Britney Spears comes out in a skin-tight bodysuit and a bunny mask. They're dancing with the poles. There's lights and explosions, and they also have a pillow fight at the end. I love this performance so much. I've watched it like a million times. She also went on her first official business venture by releasing her first perfume line, Rebel Fleur, which honestly isn't that shocking since most artists at this point in their careers had some kind of clothing or perfume line. Man Down comes out as the next single, and she flew down to Jamaica to film the video since it had that reggae feel to the song. I loved this song when I was little, and the lyrics literally made me so scared of Rihanna because I really believe she killed a man. California King Bed also comes out with the video, another storytelling one with her and her lover in a tropical setting, just has a romantic vibe to it. California King Bed was out in May, and by that summer she was on the road yet again for the Loud Tour. With even bigger sponsorships from Nivea and Renault, the show had an even bigger budget, and I know I keep saying this, but this tour was on a crazy unscalable level than she had ever done. This was her biggest tour yet, with 98 shows, over 1 million attendees, and crazy onstage spectacles. She was doing her big one here. The tour's main element was a huge nightclub party feel that was really cool. There were these huge LED screens and big circular structures all around the stage, and the stage itself was really long, with there being staircases and a mini platform on each side for her to work the stage from all angles. There were 5 acts for this tour, and the beginning is so over the top. There's sparklers shooting out, and she comes out in this huge pink disco ball wearing a vinyl jacket. There was a lot going on in the show. She was more theatrical on stage. Her costumes were more bold, especially the colorful rhinestone covered bra and underwear set. She literally grinded on random fans on stage. I wish I was there. There were bigger stage props, insane stage production, dancers doing all kinds of tricks. If I was there, I honestly think this would have been sensory overload for me. She looked like she was just having the time of her life. It literally felt like a huge party. This tour was bigger than anything she had ever done. With her extending tour dates in the UK, it then became the 7th highest grossing tour that year. She also had some big opening acts for it like J. Cole, B.O.B., CeeLo Green, and Calvin Harris. And that's just the most 2010s list ever. This tour went on for most of 2011 from beginning of summer to end of December, and during that she released one more single, Cheers, Drink to That. The song actually sampled Avril Lavigne's I'm With You and used it on a loop. The music video had footage from some of her dates on the Loud Tour and behind the scenes videos backstage. Avril Lavigne makes an appearance in the video too, and it had this toned down euphoric feel to it, with footage of her partying with her friends, going to Carnival, which is literally how I'm trying to live my life. In the end, has her on a boat screaming Rihanna Navy. I really love the concept for this video. It felt really emotional, and it just showed how much Rihanna loved her fans and how eventful the entire era as a whole was. Keep in mind, she's on tour till the end of 2011, and before it ended, she already got started on her next era, Talk That Talk. It begins with the single We Found Love, and she did her first performances of the song at the later shows on tour. This is what I like to call the I don't really care what y'all think era of Rihanna. She was doing anything here, just pure chaos and vibes. Like, why did she and Ciara have that Twitter exchange where she said she wasn't booked and busy? I don't know. but I fear it's one for the history books. I miss when Twitter was all about celebrities tweeting clapbacks to each other and funny memes that you'd only understand if you were on that app 24/7. Rihanna had been giving mature versions of herself for years, but it was nothing compared to what was happening in this era. She was partying nonstop, wearing her craziest outfits on the daily, and was out and about with a blunt in her hand and bright red lipstick. She was living her best life here. This did not come without controversy. She got huge backlash for promoting weed so freely, and that just made her use it in public even more. For the We Found Love music video, she wanted to go for a completely different concept this time. Rihanna was always known for her visual storytelling in her videos, but this time she wanted to go even further. She brought Melina Masukas to direct the video, who was responsible for some of her most controversial videos ever, and they didn't let up on this one. She ran into many issues to film the video. Originally, it was supposed to be filmed on a farm in Northern Ireland, but the owner revoked his permission when he saw how Rihanna was dressed, and he said, and I quote, she needed to find God, which is absolutely crazy. A simple no would have sufficed too. The video comes out and it's another story of her and a lover, but now they're in an abusive relationship. It shows this dynamic really well. There's scenes where they're happy and having fun, then the next they're arguing and getting into dangerous situations, but she eventually leaves him in the end. This video was wildly criticized for its images of drug use and violence, and people also had a huge problem with her taking off her clothes in the music video too. The single was a huge hit, going #1 in multiple countries, selling over 9 million copies worldwide, and it just furthered her streak when it came to having high charting singles everywhere. Rihanna was now at a point where she not only wanted to keep pushing boundaries, but she also welcomed critique of her work because she knew if people were outraged, she was doing something right. With this new provocative shift in her image also came a shift in her fashion style. She ditched the bright red hair for ombre bouncy curls and platinum blonde hair this time. Outfit-wise, it was a lot of 50s inspired Americana, British punk rock looks, and a sprinkle of hip-hop. So we're talking lots of camo, bandanas with almost every hairstyle, graphic tees, platform boots. This definitely coincided with the time period of everyone being super obsessed with British culture due to One Direction being huge around that time and fully taking over the US market. Middle school was an interesting time. But in 2012, she started rocking more street style looks and 90s pieces on the daily. It was at this time that Rihanna wasn't dressing up for specific occasions, but rather she was using the streets as her runway. So anytime she stepped out, all eyes were on her, and blogs were fiending to find out who she was wearing. I can attest that Rihanna had a huge influence on me in middle school. I too was rocking bandanas every day, and it also got me sent to the principal's office way too many times. Next single released is You Da One, another track back to her Caribbean roots. Y'all know she'll never leave it behind. I love this song so much. I would constantly listen to it on my way to class and strut down the hallway to the beat. But I guess everyone else didn't get the vision because it didn't do nearly as well as We Found Love since it didn't have that commercial sound to it, but the people that got it. 4 days after the single, the album is out, and I think I'm a little bit biased when it comes to this era because this was the first one for me where I really paid attention to Rihanna as an artist, and I actively remember listening to all of these songs. And I would say this is my second favorite album from her because it's just a non-stop good time. She worked with The Dream and Stargate again for this album, but she also worked with completely different producers and songwriters like Calvin Harris, Hit Boy, and Dr. Luke, which we're just not going to talk about that. She also had way more writing credits on this record, and the goal was to create an album that felt like a party playlist from beginning to end with completely different sounds on each song. There were way more hip-hop and R&B elements on this album, and it's physically impossible to sit still while listening to it. There was also way more explicit sexual lyrics than before. Guys, the material was just, chef's kiss. This was her third album to have the parental advisory label on the front just from how explicit so many songs on the album was. But at this point, everyone low-key expected it from her. And as you can guess, it was a success right off the bat like usual. This album was further proof that Rihanna was done trying to be the people's princess, and she was just all about having fun and talking her shit like the bad bitch she is. And the next single was just another example of this. We get Talk That Talk with Jay-Z as a third single, a pop song with hip-hop production that gets me moving on the dance floor every single time. Rihanna got ahead of the curve by infusing trap beat production into her songs before it became a huge trend a couple years later within pop music. After this, she's doing lots of promo. She went to the Grammys and the Jonathan Ross show in London. She also went to Coachella for the first time to do We Found Love with Calvin Harris.
But after this, I feel like that talk is where it gets interesting, where people start to look at it. And then Drunk on Love is like, there's no way, no turning back.
Her first documentary, The Road to Talk That Talk, was released, and it had behind the scenes of making the album. She also takes us backstage on the last day of the Loud tour and to Barbados with her family. Katy Perry is also in it, and we see some of her photo shoot concepts for the album. It had a very home video type of vibe to it that made it feel really intimate, as if it was just a regular family home video. Everything Rihanna did was making headlines, so anyone, and I mean anyone, she was seen with or she collabed with was just recipe for rumors and chaos. There was so much talk around her and Drake possibly dating around this time, as they would be at the same parties and events, and she was featured on his song Take Care, a pretty intimate song I might add, and they had crazy musical chemistry on it. Put a pin on that, because that's not the last time we'll talk about Drake here. The next single we got was Birthday Cake, and this song was an interlude, but everyone kind of thought it was an unfinished song because it was only 1 minute and 18 seconds, and Rihanna said that she specifically made it that way. There was nothing unfinished about it. That was the final version. And everyone was so angry about how short this song was, so Rihanna then announced that she was going to be coming out with a full-length artist feature remix. At first, everyone thought it was Christina Aguilera when Rihanna tweeted she wanted someone dirty on the recording, which was a reference to Christina's song Dirty, but then she later said that she wanted a male artist as the feature. Why? I don't know. And that artist ended up being Chris Brown. This remix got so many negative reviews due to her and Chris's relationship history, but Rihanna doubled down and said, guys, it's not that serious. It's just music. Instead of doing a tour for the album, she was doing lots of music festivals, especially internationally. She was doing shows in the UK and in Rio. Her sets were all about having fun and making the audience have a good time too. She had become known for making her wide-scale performances feel like you're at a party or the club with your girls. With her playing lots of music festivals in the summer, she needed a huge anthem to be played in these settings, which is when the next single, Where Have You Been, is released. This was also Rihanna's first venture into doing EDM inspired songs, and since it was Rihanna, it was another smash hit. The video was super different than anything she did before. She went for an Arabian theme with her costumes and choreo in the video, and it's definitely one of my favorites from her. This is also in my top 10 favorite Rihanna songs of all time. I get so amazed every time I listen to it because it's just crazy good. The era ends with the last single, Cockiness, as a remix with A$AP Rocky. It was also around this time that rumors that the two of them dating started, as they were seen out together sometimes, but they weren't together for that long. She went back to the VMAs and did her song with A$AP, and he literally grabbed her butt on stage. Oh, how I miss the campiness of the 2010s. And she also won Video of the Year for the second time, and her looks this night were so good. This night is also where she debuted her jet black pixie haircut. And we can obviously tell by now that with a new haircut comes a brand new era, which now takes us to Unapologetic. If you thought I wasn't going to have yet another outfit change, you clearly don't know me at all. I'm here to serve looks, people. The bad gal RiRi pop persona may have started in Good Girl Gone Bad, but the Unapologetic era is where she truly gave no and was braggadocious as hell. There were so many moments in this era that were hilarious because she had the smoke for literally everyone.
How frustrating is it when you're linked to another Hollywood star, and even if you've barely met them?
Very frustrating. Almost as frustrating as being asked about it.
So as you can see, this era was equally as chaotic and even more provocative, and you can tell that just by the album cover alone. She started with another change to her hairstyle, wearing it half shaved, which only very few people on the planet could make look good. By 2012, the music industry had completely shifted from R&B club hits to electro-pop anthems made for partying, and Rihanna was one of the very first pop stars to do this on Loud. But for Unapologetic, she went for EDM and dubstep heavy tracks to remind everyone that she was that bitch, and she could do any genre she wanted. This girl really said, I'll just pick from a hat and do whatever genre that speaks to me that particular day. With the album being named Unapologetic, that went for her personal life too, because around late 2012, her and Chris Brown officially got back together. She got huge backlash for going back to him, but people were more concerned than anything and really wanted to know her thought process behind it. So Rihanna, wanting to tell her story, went on the Oprah Winfrey Show to give the most vulnerable interview she'd given since 2009.
The world, it was embarrassing, it was humiliating, it was hurtful. You know, it's not easy. I lost my best friend. Like, everything I knew switched.
And at this point, everyone just needed to deal with it because she was going to do whatever she wanted and fuck what anyone else thinks. And I actually do mean fuck what everyone else thinks. He was actually featured on a song, Nobody's Business, on the actual album. The title and song itself is quite crazy to me because they ended up breaking up months later, but what do I know? The era begins with the lead single Diamonds. To start off with a mid-tempo ballad as the lead single shows that we were getting something completely different here. I love this video so much, from the black and white scenes to her on the highway running. There's objects breaking, burning cars. It's one of her most captivating videos ever. At this point, Ballad was her middle name. This song is a masterpiece. I cry every single time I listen to it. This style of video would be the foundation for her visual concepts for Anti, but we'll get there in a minute. Like always, this song was a worldwide success, going multi-platinum, #1 in over 20 countries, including the US, which became her 12th #1 single. I don't think you guys understand how crazy it is that she was only 6 years into her career and she already had 12 #1s. She was carrying the industry. She does more promo for Diamonds at the Victoria's Secret fashion show where she performed. It was one of her best vocal moments this far. She really put on a show here. Look at the veins popping. And she walked down the runway pretty much out-serving the models with her song Fresh Out the Runway, wearing a pink sheer lingerie set. Justin Bieber was looking mesmerized at the end. It was a great night. With her being featured in the Victoria's Secret fashion show like this, because it's one thing to just perform, but it's another to also walk down the runway, this was a nod to her being respected in the fashion industry and seen as a fashion icon at this point. She started wearing more bold and iconic streetwear looks that everyone was starting to replicate. Yes, Rihanna had been known for evolving her style like all the time, but in terms of her influence on the general public and even celebrities, it was at an all-time high here. She serves all kinds of out there fits, from snapbacks, crop tops, denim jackets, jersey cardigans, baggy pants with Timberlands, which all contributed to the streetwear craze of 2012 to 2014. Another person I automatically think of when it comes to being the face of streetwear at this time was also Zendaya and her oversaturated pictures on Instagram. And I loved every single minute of it. We used to have fun on the internet, y'all. A month after the single, she goes on a promotional tour, the 777 tour, with 7 shows in 7 countries in Europe and North America. For the tour, she invited 150 fans and journalists to come with her on a private plane and join her at each stop of the tour and even party with her along the way. In theory, this seemed like a great idea to connect with fans and even get great press from the media for them to get an inside look to see how Rihanna preps for her tour, but it turned into a disaster very quick. The passengers were barely being fed food. They were also getting little to no sleep, and the tour itself had lots of delays at the shows, and Rihanna herself was pretty much nowhere to be found. Like, they never saw that girl. I'm really trying not to laugh, but whose idea was this? If you want to deep dive into the disaster of the 777 tour, I highly recommend you watch Ashley Caria's video on it. She does an amazing job at showing how chaotic the whole thing was. 5 days after the 777 tour, the album drops, and it's her highest first week sales yet, breaking her own records. For the album, she worked with a variety of different songwriters and producers, from the best of hip-hop to popular electronic DJs, from Mike Will Made It to David Guetta, which is why the album itself has so many different sounds and influences like EDM. Rihanna got way ahead of the curve when putting trap production into her music, because pop stars wouldn't start to do this for another couple of years. I would say this album sounds very 2012, but it also has those futuristic elements that give it a really timeless feel. Having Future on this song is both hilarious and very ironic. Now, my personal favorite song on the album and a top 5 favorite all-time Rihanna song is Fresh Out the Runway. That song is for the bad bitches and the bad bitches only. Critics didn't like the album too much. They said the production was too jarring and it was lyrically weak, but personally, I think they just lacked imagination. The second single, Stay, comes out, which was another slower ballad, and it's very interesting that this is the second one she'd do as a single. This isn't super surprising. 2012 was huge for chart-topping ballads like When I Was Your Man, All of Me, and literally the entire 21 album. Stay became another huge hit, and I can actively remember this song's impact because it came out around the time that I was in middle school, which is probably when my first core memories of music actually started that I can pinpoint and truly remember how big these songs were. I kid you not, at my 6th grade talent show, 3 different people sang this song and I was tired of it. The era of singles would start to take a shift to more upbeat club tracks with the very next one. Pour It Up became a club staple. The trap production goes absolutely insane here, and I would call it a stripper's anthem at this point. Everything about the music video is so 2012. I don't really know how to explain it. She was really giving that bad bitch persona here, having the dancers on poles, twerking, and giving off an it girl aura. It really is a timeless banger at this point. Okay, I'm getting super excited because now we're gonna get into the 5-legged Diamonds World Tour. This was her most fashion-forward, technological, raunchiest tour yet, with 96 shows, all but 3 sold out. The tour didn't have an overall theme, but rather it felt like 5 different shows all rolled into one experience. There were 6 acts for this show. Act 1 opened with her singing Mother Mary in a black draped top with a chapel backdrop behind her, and the backdrop rises and she comes out in a custom Givenchy oversized black embroidered parka and a leather bra paired with a sheer black shirt and gold satin shorts, and she even had a gold shark tooth necklace engraved with the name RiRi on it. And we cannot forget the iconic birthday cake choreo. Act 2 has my absolute favorite look on this tour. She wears this sheer black dress and white Louboutin boots, and she's absolutely serving here. Act 2 also had all of her Caribbean-styled songs like You Da One, Man Down, and Rude Boy, so the vibe was more dancey and laid back. Act 3 had crazy visual backdrops. She comes out in a white and yellow blocked bustier and leather pants with Manolo Blahnik snakeskin boots. The lighting was super cool, and there's fire shooting everywhere. All things I love at a concert. Act 4 was the ballad section of the tour, so she wore a red halter top and wraparound skirt for a more glam look to slow things down. But Act 5 picks the energy back up with a completely new set concept of bright lights and floating decor. She does We Found Love in a dollar bill halter dress. For S&M, she's walking around in the crowd and she looks like she's having a great time. The crowd goes insane. Don't Stop the Music is very fun and flirty, and I love the high top boots she wears, very 2010s. The last act, she changes into a silver bodysuit while singing Stay, and she ends the set with diamonds. It's super electrifying and raw. She really didn't need to hit us hard like this. After a huge tour like this, and keep in mind the tour was 8 months long, the rest of the era was pretty tame. We got 3 more singles with only What Now having a music video, and it has a dark and supernatural vibe similar to Disturbia. But other than that, the Unapologetic era pretty much ends here. After this, she took a short hiatus, I guess you could call it, and she was doing all kinds of side projects. She began working on her next album a couple of years after Unapologetic wrapped, but she ran into many issues with Def Jam as they didn't like the new direction she wanted to take with her music. Within the last couple of years, Rihanna felt like she wasn't getting the creative freedom that she wanted and that she very well deserved after giving so much of herself for years at this point. So not only did she leave Def Jam swiftly, she also took her masters with her to Roc Nation, Jay-Z's label, just to make their pockets hurt a little more. So with her going to Roc Nation for management and also recording music, she started doing way more outside of of music than ever before. She went to the Council of Fashion Designers of America Fashion Awards, and she showed up in the now very iconic crystal-covered Swarovski dress styled by Adam Selman that made headlines everywhere for her pretty much being naked. And we also got this very hilarious video from her.
Yes, I am. Why, my bother you?
Oh no!
They're covered in Swarovski crystals, girl.
This is just peak pop girl behavior. I love it. She did a small summer tour with Eminem, the Monster Tour, after they put out their song Monster earlier that year. The tour was pretty short, with it being about 3 weeks, and had 6 shows at 3 different venues in the US, and she just looked like she was having a good time here. Rihanna had done some small-scale cameos in TV, film, and even had some minor acting roles, but she hadn't done any work that really showcased her acting abilities. She would make her voice acting debut in the movie Home, voicing the character Tip, and I remember watching this movie when it came out and I loved it so much, but I didn't realize that Rihanna was the voice behind her character. I'm being so serious. I kept asking my friends why she sounded so familiar to me, and they kept looking at me like I was crazy. 2015 was also the year of her Droplet singles era. We got so many amazing singles during this time, and they were also quite random and different from anything we had ever heard from her, because she was finally free from the shackles of Def Jam and did whatever the hell she wanted. She collabed with Kanye and Paul McCartney on 4 5 Seconds, and the song is actually pretty good, but the music video was so unserious. It does not match the vibe at all, and I don't even know what Kanye is doing, but it's funny to look at. But the next song she would drop would truly stop the world.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Bitch Better Have My Money comes out mid-2015 and fully takes over the radio worldwide and became a staple Rihanna song. Remember way back when I said her accountant was stealing her money and almost made her go bankrupt? Yeah, she got her lick back on that loser here. This song is so good. It's one of those ones that I will never get tired of. I'll still play it 20 years from now. This was actually Rihanna's second video to be age restricted on YouTube because there was a crazy amount of nudity in it, but all in the name of creativity, right? After this, she attends the Met Gala again, and that year's theme was China Through the Looking Glass. So she wore a bright yellow coat dress with a long train by Chinese designer Gao Pei. This look alone began her reputation as the queen of the Met Gala. And every single time she would go back, she would just continue to top herself. I would say this hiatus ends with her Rock in Rio festival performance. This one was miles ahead of the one she did 4 years ago. She's on another level here. She looks amazing. Her baggy yellow cardigan and pants set is one of my all-time favorite looks by her. I wanted this outfit so bad back then. This was for sure her best performance yet, and it still is one of her best performances. There were over 85,000 people in that crowd for her hour-long set, and she had amazing energy the entire time. The fact that she even wore this outfit is insane to me, knowing that it was crazy hot there. It's quite embarrassing the amount of times I've watched this performance on YouTube, and it's because I'm angry that I didn't get to live it myself. Why couldn't I be rich in 2015? It is now time to get into the era that changed everything, anti. Rihanna went into this era wanting to completely shed everything she had ever done before and go for something really innovative and timeless. She was at a point where she truly didn't care about chart success. She just wanted to create a body of work that she would be incredibly proud of, and this is where she had full creative control. She was super hands-on from the writing to the creative direction. There was way more of an eclectic feel for promo going into this era, starting with her going to Paris for the editorial shoots of the album. While she was there, fan accounts posted on Twitter to invite fans to Paris that evening for an exclusive R8 experience. No one knew what any of this meant, but the people were down for the shenanigans and they showed up that night. Hours later, Rihanna shows up with photographers and videographers and runs right into the crowd of fans. This video was used as promo to build anticipation for the album, and I kid you not, the world stopped when this video dropped. I was hyperventilating, kicking, screaming when I saw this. This was the single most important event of my life. I love everything about this moment. It really shows just how much she adores her fans, and she herself said this was the best day of her life. This era would start right at the beginning of 2016 with the single Work. I don't need to go on a long tangent about this song. Y'all knew where you were when it dropped. Another song with heavy dancehall influences, but this one was without a doubt her most successful one with this sound. And this was now her third collaboration with Drake, and them together on a song was just somehow destined for greatness. And obviously this added to those dating rumors about them even more with her dancing on him in the music video. And of course they were seen literally everywhere together. And she also featured on his song Too Good on his album Views around this time. With Work being mega successful, she made history by having the most #1 singles in the 21st century. That is absolutely insane. Very few people were touching her in terms of success. She had been dominating for 10 years straight now. Not even a day after the single, the album was dropped and no one expected this kind of sound to come from Rihanna. This was an album with absolutely no songs made for radio, but rather a classic body of work. She experimented with so many different sounds on this album, from R&B to rock, and created probably the greatest album of our generation. I love this album with every fiber of my being. It is my all-time favorite Rihanna album, and I could spend years talking about it, but I'll let it speak for itself. Woo. Needed Me. Desperado. Yeah, I said it. Like, come on. And those are just the ones that I play on constant repeat because I can't name the entire damn album. We don't have time for that. That's how good it is. For this album, Rihanna signed a $25 million deal with Samsung to promote their new line of Galaxy phones. And they also purchased 1 million copies of the album and gave them away as free downloads as part of the deal. And because of that, Billboard didn't recognize it as genuine album sales, and it ended up debuting at number 27 with 460 album equivalent units first week. This was just disrespectful. Why do y'all do that? But according to SoundScan, Anti did 4.7 million streams and 126,000 digital song downloads. So the next week, it shot up to #1 where it belonged. Not only is this album Rihanna's magnum opus, but it has broken so many records since its release. Allow me to lay it out for you. It was streamed 1.4 billion times in its first year of release. It became the 9th best-selling album of 2016. It sold 6 million copies worldwide, became the first album by a Black female artist to spend 400 weeks on Billboard, and it's the 4th longest charting female album in Billboard 200 history. That was a mouthful, but we need to show the excellence here, people. Critics were 50-50 on this album, but everyone collectively agreed that this was her most daring project yet, and she was praised for her new musical direction. Outside of just music, Rihanna was constantly praised for changing up her style every single year. No two were ever the same. At first, she wore a jet black bob, then wavy long hair, and sleek hairstyles from bust downs to ponytails, and the occasional blunt bang. She started experimenting with lots of Afrocentric hairstyles, from big braids, bantu knots, to jumbo locks for the upcoming movie she'd been filming. She did wear locks once back in 2012 on American Idol, but we're not going to talk about that because I don't know what this is. Her wearing these became a huge trend in 2016 and 2017, with people all wearing locks just like her. She had always been a go-to when it came to fashion and style, but by this time she was now looked at as a trendsetter, and whatever she wore, whether it was her hair or her outfits, were all over the blogs and Pinterest boards. Everyone wanted to look exactly like her. She debuted her first clothing collection with Puma, very athleisure leaning, and it became a go-to look for her. In terms of singles, it was a pretty short run with only Kiss It Better, Needed Me, and Love on the Brain. She was clearly trying to steer away from the traditional album rollout strategy, since Kiss It Better and Needed Me were released and sent to radio the same day, where Love on the Brain didn't drop till that fall. And Kiss It Better was the only single with an actual music video this time. It was critically acclaimed for its creative direction, which showed just how much effort and emotion was put into all aspects of this album. Every single of this era did incredibly well, and there isn't one that I prefer over the other. Actually, that's a lie. She put crack in Kiss It Better. Man, fuck your pride. I repeat those words way too often. Now it's time for some serious business, people. We're gonna get into her last tour, the Anti-World Tour. This one I have a huge attachment to because it went on during my freshman year of high school, and I wanted to go so bad and my mom wouldn't let me. And to this day, I will forever have beef with her for that. This tour was sponsored by Samsung, and it had a very different direction from the last tour, going for a more understated vibe this time around to match the eclectic nature of the album. She wore some really cool outfits here, lots of monochromatic colors and understated material compared to past tours, but I honestly think these are probably some of her best tour looks overall. She had a lot more live singers on stage to make the experience and sound super full. The backdrop had more maximalist tones with puffy material, which was really ahead of its time since this style wouldn't be popular for another couple of years. She went on this tour more on the essence of just enjoying performing and giving amazing vocal performances rather than giving a huge spectacle the entire time. She kept high energy with her choreography like always, but this time around she really relied on being in the moment and just enjoying herself on stage, and it's really amazing to see the evolution of her tours up to this point. After this, we probably get the most iconic moment from this era. She went back to the VMAs again and won the Michael Jackson Vanguard Award. This was an amazing accomplishment, as this award is the most prestigious award in the history of the VMAs, which she very much well deserved. And as the recipient of that award, she performed 4 times that night. She opens with a medley of her biggest hits while wearing a bright pink bodysuit and Hood by Air custom shirt inspired by the brand's Spring 2017 men's couture show. She then pops out another time with a dance hall inspired performance, and this was my favorite performance from this night. I love her outfit here. The pink trim bra with the do-rag and the baggy tailored trousers. Yep. Chef's kiss. And she sings Work, Rude Boy, and What's My Name with a million dancers on stage, just killing it on the choreo. She did it so good here. Then there was the third performance of Bitch Better Have My Money, Needed Me, and Pour It Up, and she's wearing this high fashion clubby outfit with a mullet and knee-high boots. And she finished it off with a Grand Couture look by Alexander Vautier. She sings Stay and Love on the Brain. It was just a 10 out of 10 performance. That night was with good performances, but an even more iconic moment between her and Drake. He gives a speech introducing Rihanna as the recipient of the Vanguard Award, professes his love for her.
She's someone I've been in love with since I was 22 years old.
She does the dab very randomly and goes up to get it. He tries to kiss her on stage and she rejects him. This was live peak comedy. This was all anyone talked about for weeks on end. You really had to be there. After this, she goes on her second hiatus and we got a couple of singles and some features too. This Is What You Came For, Wild Thoughts, Loyalty, and Lemon. This Is What You Came For was the biggest hit from them, but there's something about Wild Thoughts. I will never get tired of that song. Loyalty is also up there for songs of the summer. Let's not forget that masterpiece. And from here, she completely stops pumping out music because she was now entering the next stage of her career, her post-music era. 2017 was the start to her second hiatus that actually felt like a hiatus, but it was also the shift from music icon to business mogul. In 2017, she launched her makeup brand, Fenty Beaty, which was a very bold move. At this point, artists were really only known for attaching their name to like a perfume line, maybe even clothing, but a makeup brand was completely left field. Fenty Beaty became a pioneer in the beauty industry. Her brand was the first to have a complete inclusive shade range of makeup, from fair to rich colors for dark-skinned people, which wasn't the standard for makeup then. If you were black, prior to this, trying to find makeup in your exact shade wasn't even a struggle. You weren't finding that shade. And this turned out to be a very smart choice. Fenty Beaty became a massive commercial juggernaut in the beauty industry, raking in hundreds of millions of dollars. And since this was a financial success for her, it led to other brands incorporating a more inclusive shade range into their products as well. The fact that it took until 2017 and Rihanna of all people to make brands include a wider shade range is something I will always give them the side eye for. Fenty Beaty not only made Rihanna the richest female artist ever at the time, but it became a game changer for artist business ventures. After this, all kinds of makeup companies by artists started popping up left and right, and we don't call Rihanna a pioneer for nothing, y'all. She was also being recognized by universities for her work in philanthropy. She's built healthcare centers, created programs in education, education, and so much more within the US and her home Barbados. And this led to Harvard awarding her with the Humanitarian Award, which is an amazing achievement. She was at a point where she wanted to keep her dating life super low-key because around this time she started dating billionaire Hassan Jameel, and the internet was very happy for her bagging a very wealthy man. But they only lasted for 3 years, so we move. She was also making huge moves in the fashion industry. She went back to the Met Gala, and at this point the Met Gala was nothing without the arrival of Rihanna. She did back-to-back appearances in 2017 and 2018, but her 2018 look speaks to me so much more. 2018 she launches another company, Savage X Fenty, and this was a lingerie company that also sold sleepwear, which was a perfect fit for her image as a sex icon. While it wasn't as big as Fenty Beauty, within the lingerie and intimates industry, it became a huge force, even being a big competitor to the giant Victoria's Secret. Now, I'm not saying she single-handedly brought down the company. I'm just saying there seems to be a pattern here. What made her company so successful was that it used body diversity in terms of its marketing and its mission statement. All over their website, you saw models of all sizes and ethnicities, which wasn't always the case, and sometimes it still isn't. Brands would love to be funny by being like, oh, we have bigger sizes, and they would come out with the ugliest pieces ever. Like, y'all know what you were doing. I personally love Savage X Fenty. I have bought so many bra and underwear sets that I still wear to this day, and you should also get some of their house slippers. They're very cute too. Remember how I said she was trying to outshine Victoria's Secret? She came even harder with her very first Savage X Fenty show in September 2018. The show was very different from the norm of the Victoria's Secret show with their out there pieces for the models, the segments of the show where artists performs, but it was also just so much cooler here. She had some of the most famous models ever in the show. She would also make her major acting debut as a lead actress in Ocean's 8 with Anne Hathaway, Sandra Bullock, Sarah Paulson, Cate Blanchett, just a star-studded cast here. Sometimes when music artists do a movie, it can be a hit or miss, but not this one. It was a box office success. On the music side of things, not too much was going on. She did a performance at the Grammys with DJ Khaled and Bryson for Wild Thoughts, which is a favorite performance of mine. I love her dress. The way she dances, just nasty. And because of this, obviously people thought new music would be coming, so she did a couple of interviews saying that music would be coming in the next year. The way people online hounded her for new music is very funny because one thing about Twitter, they will be very creative with their words. My favorite tweet of all time was a quote for Don't Stop the Music, and someone said, she said please don't stop the music, but then she stopped the music. That alone is why I will never get rid of Twitter. And keep in mind, Anti was still on the charts. The people were starving, and unfortunately, we remain hungry because we got nothing. By 2020, her image had completely shifted from being seen as an artist first to now a businesswoman primarily. Her social media and online presence only catered to Fenty Beauty and Savage X Fenty, and she even had a lot of celebrities as brand ambassadors. And how could I forget about the hilarious Savage X Fenty interview?
And he designed some boxer briefs that both men and women and non-binary people of all gender appropriations and the pronouns.
Every now and then she would make a post about music, but it was only really for like an album anniversary or a new milestone that she had reached. If you think she still wasn't being streamed all the time, you clearly do not have an intelligent bone in your body. She was still breaking streaming records and remained one of the top artists on Spotify without releasing anything in 4 years. That's absolutely insane. It was also around this time that she circled the block and started dating A$AP Rocky again. People had mixed feelings about this with his very weird comments on colorism and a lot of other stupid comments he made, but she loves who she loves. Here she started wearing more looser clothing pretty often. Her and A$AP were serving all kinds of amazing looks on the streets. No one was outdressing them. But for Rihanna, it was less of a focus on body-fitting outfits, which led to people thinking she was pregnant. And turns out she was. Rihanna would be nothing without creating some kind of fashion trend. She wore outfits showing off her baby bump, which was all caps not the norm for pregnant women, because God forbid you saw a pregnant woman's belly. That's so inappropriate. This led to celebrities and even the common folk wearing outfits showing off their baby bump too, and I love that for them. Why should pregnant women go around looking homeless? They can serve high fashion too. She ended up giving birth to her first child, Riza, which was an amazing time for her as she was now in her motherhood era. A year later, she made history by officially becoming a billionaire, making her the richest female artist of all time. Taylor Swift did eventually beat her in 2024, but semantics. Rihanna's pockets were full. In 2022, a little movie, you may have heard of it, Black Panther 2 was dropping that year, and guess who used it as her return to music? She released Lift Me Up as the lead song for the soundtrack, and unfortunately, no one liked it. I'm not joking, people were asking her to return the song and come back with something else. A little bit after this, it's announced that Rihanna would be headlining at the 2022 Super Bowl, and everyone was seated for this. It was a huge event because the last full-fledged performance we had from her was back in 2016, so 6 years of a full stop to music. This was the event of the year. The performance was really good. She wore this custom red set and revealed her second pregnancy during the show. The dancers were on 10. The choreo was insane here. She had floating ledges everywhere. She wasn't dancing nearly as hard as she normally does, but still made the performance look as effortless as ever. A lot of people were split on it either being really boring or one of the greatest halftime shows of all time. But one thing you can't deny is that she had so many hits in that set list that no matter what she did, it was destined to be great no matter what. It was the most watched Super Bowl halftime show in history with 121 million viewers, and it was critically praised across the board. Months later, she has her second child, Riot, and her and Rocky were building a little family of theirs, which was just beautiful to see. After this, things are a bit more quiet. There were more launches of Fenty Beaty and Savage X. She's also having lots of influencer events and even drops a hair care line, Fenty Hair. She was trying to take over everything and she was being successful at it, so I'm not mad at it. She would go back to doing some voice acting. In late 2024, it's announced that she's starring in the upcoming Smurfs movie and doing some music for the soundtrack too, which I was not expecting at all. By the time this video comes out, the movie may be out. I'm not sure yet, depends on how fast I am, but either way, I'm sure it'll be good. There was also the ASAP Rocky trial that happened February 2025, but I'm not gonna talk about it because it is quite messy. So if you want more details about that, there's lots of channels here that break it down way better than I could. Most of her digital presence these days are her posting cool pictures, living her best life with ASAP, and having a good time.
7 p.m. Friday, it's 95 degrees. I ain't got and ain't got me.
You gotta love her. And that, my friends, is the end of my Rihanna era's deep dive special. I am so happy this video is finally out, and now that it is, I'm not sure if I really have a purpose anymore. If you like this video, I urge you to watch my other video in this series, which is all about Little Mix, so go check that out if you have another hour or so to spare. I know I say this all the time, but if you've made it to the end, not only do I appreciate you, but you too deserve a medal for being a fan of excellence. I really want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one, whenever that is. Roll the amazing outro.